Hi, I'm Chen Yunwu from UMass Amherst. Our work is on describing textures using natural language. By texture, we refer to local patterns such as material and color that exclude the effects of shape, object category, or other high-level cues. We begin with the motivation, and then we introduce our dataset, tasks, and methods. We further provide an analysis of language modeling and applications on fine-grained categorization. So, why is it necessary to combine textures with natural language? Firstly, texture has rich details. For example, all the images here are labeled as lined texture, but they vary a lot in material, color, and specific patterns. Existing study of texture mainly uses binary class labels, while existing vision language datasets have very limited treatment on texture. This motivates us to use natural language attributes to describe rich details of texture. Compared with images of objects and scenes, textures are also relatively easy to modify. Taking the original dotted image, we can simply add color offsets to black and white regions respectively. It produces realistic textures with different color combinations, but still maintain the pattern and the canvas material touch and details of hairy boundaries around the dots. It provides us a playground to systematically study the compositional language modeling. Finally, deep recognition models are known to rely largely on textures, especially in fine-grained scenarios. Texture details are important to tell apart the example flowers. It's not only about the color, but also whether they are veined or dotted, and the size or distribution of the dots. By associating texture with language, we can better understand and interpret the neural nets for recognition. Now we introduce our DTD2 dataset. We take texture images from DTD and ask AMT annotators to write natural language descriptions, and they are fairly verified by us. We find it difficult to describe all aspects of the texture with a long and grammatically correct sentence. Instead, most annotators use a set of phrases as a description. Therefore, we also have the descriptions parsed into phrases mainly based on the commas. We have over 5,000 images, each with at least 3 descriptions, and also a set of phrases parsed from the descriptions. As shown in the phrase cloud, we have over 600 frequent phrases, while the original DTD dataset only has 47 class labels. We dramatically expand the vocabulary used to describe textures. On the collected dataset, we study 3 tasks: retrieve phrases based on the input texture image, retrieve images based on the input phrase or description, and generate descriptions from an input image. We compare 3 types of methods. In the classifier, we encode images as features from different layers of ResNet 101 and handle the 655 frequent phrases as binary classes. In the magic learning method, we encode the images with ResNet and encode the phrase or descriptions with different language encoders, and finally chain with a triplet loss so that the associated image and languages are near each other in the shared encoded space. We also adopt the widely used image captioning model, show, attend, and tell, for the description generation task. All methods are tuned on our own dataset. Magic learning performs best in phrase retrieval. BERT outperforms other language encoders such as LSTM and ELMO by large margin. For image retrieval, the winner is the classifier with both features from Layer 2 and Layer 4 of ResNet 101. It's demonstrated that both lower-level and higher-level features are useful. For description generation, we concatenate the top 5 phrases retrieved in the classifier and magic learning as baselines. Phrases in bold are from the ground truth set. Magic learning is based on captioning metrics and provides reasonable outputs, but both the classifier and the magic learning model have the issue of repeating words with similar meanings. In the first example, wrinkled, crinkled, crumpled, and creased basically mean the same thing. The show, attend, and tell, on the other hand, is able to generate more fluent descriptions covering different aspects of the texture. We then conduct a further analysis on how the models handle the compositionality of languages. We systematically generate synthetic textures and descriptions. We take 10 typical two-color patterns as shown in the first row. 5 patterns on the left have foreground-background distinction, while the 5 on the right do not have this distinction. We manually modify the colors into pairs from 11 predefined colors. This results in a synthetic dataset of 1,100 images. On top of the synthetic dataset, we designed several image retrieval experiments with templated queries. The first experiment emphasizes the comprehension of foreground color. The query phrases are constructed as color plus the foreground pattern, such as pink dots. We use images with the mentioned color on the background as the negative samples, and evaluate if our model can rank positive images above negative ones. Similarly, we have the second experiment on background color. We also have experiments on modeling the combination of color and pattern, as well as the combination of two colors. Here we show the retrieval results. We find it especially difficult for the models to distinguish the foreground and background. When the input is pink dots, the model mistakenly retrieves images with dots of other colors on pink background. When the input is red background, the output contains a lot of images with red foreground color. This encourages further study on how to model the compositionality of language and associate it with visual regions. Finally, we move on to applications on fine-grained classification. Given a chained classifier such as a bilinear CNN model, we obtain the maximal images that maximize the activation on target categories by backpropagation. Then we input the maximal images to our machine learning model to retrieve phrases as shown in the word clouds. The word clouds show what texture attributes the bilinear CNN is relying on to recognize each category. While the most obvious clues are the colors, the model also recognizes other attributes. In the butterfly examples on the right, the first category has woven texture, the second one is rough and bumpy, and the third one is shiny and speckled. We can also use our texture phrases to train fine-grained classifiers. We train linear classifiers to predict bird species on the cup dataset. We can use log likelihood over our texture phrases as input to the linear classifier, or use binary attributes from cup, or use the combination of the two as input. On the left plot, the x-axis is the number of features, the y-axis is the classification accuracy. The blue line represents our texture phrases, and the phrases are ranked by their frequency in our dataset. The green marks are different subsets of cup attributes, and the orange marks are cup attributes combined with our 100 most frequent phrases. The red arrows show the accuracy improvement after adding our attribute phrases to cup attributes. Note that the cup attributes are expert designed and localized, such as is the tail squared and is the wing yellow. Our texture phrases can still capture useful information not included in the expert designed cup attribute dataset. On the right, we visualize the positive and negative texture attributes for each category based on the weights from the linear classifier. Our texture phrases are different from the vocabulary commonly used to describe birds, but it still helps us to understand what feature the classifier is looking at. The model learns that the first species is scaly but not cold, the second one is gray and orange but not brown, and the third one is bubbly, stained but not veined. This is the end of our presentation. Our code and data are released on the project website. Thank you for your attention.